From Cornwall to Birmingham and Johnston and Bexhill, here's Ruben Spar on the radio.
Hello to Shirley Barr. How are you today?
I'm very well, thanks, Ruben. And how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you. Let me chat to you today. So, can you tell me how long have you been a singer-songwriter for?
So, I started songwriting in April 2021 when I signed up for a course. So, like 3.5 years now, just over 3.5 years.
So, what made you be a singer-songwriter?
I have always loved to sing. Like, I've grown up all through my life performing by myself in groups, in like barbershops and singing with bands and things. So, but I never thought I'd actually write my own music. It was kind of like a dream, but it was just a bit scary. And for me, when the pandemic took everything online, that was my silver lining because I felt able to sign up for an online songwriting course, which I would never have gone along to in person initially. So that's how I got started on a course called Bird on a Wire, which Boo Hewardine and Findlay Napier put online during the pandemic because that's all that artists could do then. So yeah, that was my gateway into songwriting.
What was that like doing a songwriting course? What was that like?
For me, it was fantastic. Not only was it inspirational, they gave us tools for coming up with melodies and writing lyrics and things. But one of the most beneficials for me was this group, or most of the group that met online on this course 3.5 years ago. We decided after the 8 weeks we finished that we were having so much fun and learning stuff together that we decided to keep on meeting. So still 3.5 years later, every month we meet once a month online and we take it in turns to host on Zoom. And someone gives a prompt that we all write to, and we drop songs into a Dropbox, and then whoever's hosting plays them all, and we chat and give feedback. And we've got a WhatsApp chat group, which is kind of like this having this hive mind, because we're all at different stages of creating music. So, and there's been a number of albums and EPs and things released in the last 3.5 years. So if we've got a question, then we'll just fire it into the WhatsApp chat group. So for me, it was one of the best things I ever did.
And I
Signing
guess
up
it's
for the course.
great to keep that connection with the other artists that you met on that course.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's been very beneficial. And in fact, of 6 of the tracks on the EP, only one of them didn't start its life as a prompt from this online group, and the one that didn't was a co-write with one of the members in the group. So it was his lyrics and my melody. So yeah, I kind of owe the EP to this wonderful group. And we call ourselves, because the course was called Bird on a Wire, we decided to call ourselves Drunks in a Midnight Choir because of the Leonard Cohen connection. So yeah, it's great.
So, as me being a non-singer, well, technically, my family is all quite. My dad's side is along here did quite well with singing. So, what is between the difference between the lyrics and a melody?
Well, the lyrics of the song, what you mean when you're trying to come up with one?
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Well, that's a good question. I mean, I come at songwriting different. Like sometimes it will start with a lyric and sometimes it will start with a melody. And for me, one always sort of like dictates the other. Like if I've got a bit of melody, then I'll try and find words that will fit or have an idea of what I'm trying to do and then create it around the shape of the melody. Whereas if I've got lyrics to start with, and then come up with a melody, I might tailor the lyrics a bit, but that kind of dictates where it comes from. Does that make sense?
So, is it a long process to write?
It can be, and sometimes it can come like that. Like sometimes I might just be walking down the street and some words will come into my head and then a bit of a melody and then it just flows from there. And sometimes you can agonize over having like 3.5 verses and just struggling to finish the lyrics or just, get the middle eight in the right place. So it's sometimes it really flows very quickly and easily, and other times I have so many unfinished songs which are sitting on the back burner to be completed.
So, is there like the melody? Is that like the tune of it? Is that?
Yes. Yeah. I like to work with drones, quite like a harmonium or a shruti box, and that just gives you like a bass note. And so then the melody would be like a tune that you would find over the top of that.
Yeah, very fascinating to know that. So, I see a guitar behind you there. So, what kind of guitar have you got behind you there?
That is actually a Fender ukulele. It looks like a guitar from this, but it's actually smaller than a guitar. So I've got a ukulele, and then I play tenor guitar, which is a four-stringed guitar, rather than a six-string guitar, and I have two of them in different tunings. And I also recently just bought something called a guitarlele, which is a combination. So it's like the size of a ukulele, but it's got six strings. So it's compact, but it's got all the size, like the range of a guitar, but it's a much smaller instrument.
Yeah, when I was in Cornwall recently, went to see a ukulele band, and they was great. They was
And because you get all sorts of different ukuleles, you get the little tiny soprano ones, and then you get the concert ones, and then you get like I didn't realize you could
one
get
that's
bass
one
ukulele.
like a cross between a banjo and a ukulele. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And the bass ukuleles have got really thick strings. Yeah.
So, did you record your debut single at the recording studio?
So my first experience in a recording studio was actually part of a course which I did last year called Stages, which was curated by Boo Hewardine, in partnership with Moniac Moore, which is a creative writing centre based in the Highlands. And it was a 4 month long songwriting mentorship program. And it took us through from songwriting to production to marketing, and eventually to performance. And there were 12 of us on the program, and each of us wrote a song and took it to a studio in Glasgow called Chem 19 and worked with a sound engineer called Jamie Savage. So that was my first experience of recording my own music in a recording studio, but that was quite different to doing my own EP.
So, what
So,
was it like recording your EP in a recording
so
studio?
the EP was recorded in the recording studio of the venue I actually work at, which is called the Universal Hall, which is based in the Fintorn Eco Village here in Murray. And it's got like a soundproof studio, which used to be a fully functioning studio with all the desks and controls, but those came out a couple of decades ago. And Ewan McPherson, who produced and engineered, actually brought his own kit in each time. So we had 5 days in the studio, and each time he came in, he would set up his laptop in the booth, and we'd run cables through to do the recording. And he brought all his own mics and equipment along, which was so that was it was a very different studio experience to Chem 19, which is like a setup fully functioning. Runs as a studio daily, but for me it was really great because I was in like the venue I work in, so it felt very comfortable. Because it's quite daunting to do something like that for the first time. So it was great. Yeah, I was quite nervous on the first day just because I'd only met Ewan via Zoom, and he's one of my favorite musicians. So I was a bit like, oh, in awe. And he was put me at my ease very quickly. And I'd brought a percussionist friend of mine along for the first day to put some percussion down. So yeah, it was great. I really enjoyed myself.
So, can you tell me more about the rope?
So The Rope is the one song which was the co-write from the EP, and it started life again as part of this online songwriting group that I'm part of. A songwriter called Colin McDuff shared a poem which he'd written called The Rope. And when I read it, I was like, I really love this, Colin. Would you mind if I set it to a melody? And he said, yeah, sure, absolutely. And I changed very little of it. It's like the shape of it was just perfect. And I used my Shruti box to come up with a melody, and as soon as I heard the initial melody line, I could hear all the different harmonies. And the demo version, which I recorded, I used a loop, a drum loop, like tom toms almost. But I could hear a tabla, and my friend Dave Martin, who I took into the studio on the first day, played that tabla beat that you can hear on it.
So, can you tell me more about Run Free?
So, Run Free was inspired by some words that jumped out at me from a Gerard Manley Hopkins poem. And the words were fickle and freckled, which immediately made me think of a much younger much more carefree me. And do you remember how, like, the night before the summer holidays, when we were kids, like young, and the summer holidays stretched forever, and it was just like, oh, I'm going to have adventures, I'm going to run around with my friends and go camping, and all those feelings. That's kind of what I was trying to encapsulate in that song.
So, can you tell me more about your debut EP that you released?
So the EP itself is called Begin, Began, Begun, because it's about beginnings for me. And it's got 6 tracks. Um, I did the vocals on all of them, obviously. And I played shruti box and tenor guitar and ukulele. And I had 2 of my friends, which I met on the Stages course the year before. I brought Jamie, who is quite local to me. He actually came into the studio at Universal Hall for 2 of the days and played a lot of the harmonium and did some of the vocals. Ewan McPherson, who produced and engineered, also did some of the backing vocals. He plays bass. He did a lot of the percussion. We had a lot of fun doing the percussion. It wasn't just tabla and it wasn't just Baran that my friend thought he was coming into play. He ended up playing things like an upside down plastic bucket, a packet of pins. I think Ewan had him playing a fire extinguisher, because he had very specific sounds that he was trying to find. So at one point we were running around the basement of the building that the studio's in, trying to find items to make the noises kind of that Ewan was looking for. And yeah, I sent the demos to Ewan initially, but then there was quite a lot of collaboration between myself and the musicians that I brought in. There was Jamie, there was Beth Porter, who was also on the course, who's an exceptional cellist and beautiful songwriter in her own right. And I sent her a couple of the tracks and asked her to come up with cello lines. And Maria Quinn plays the piano on the EP. She is one of my Drunks in a Midnight choir friends. And again, I sent, like, she's based in Glasgow, I sent the tracks to her, the piano parts. So yeah, there's myself, Ewan, Jamie, Beth, and Maria are the musicians that feature on the EP. 6 tracks. Starts with the rope, and then there is Round Free. There's a track called Hermione, a track called Little Thief, a track called Queen of Cups, and then it finishes with a track called Papadil. And if you want, I can tell you the inspirations behind each of the tracks. With that, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds good.
The rope we've talked about already. That was the poem that came from Colin. And Run Free we've talked about. That was the Gerard Manley Hopkins poem that inspired that. Hermione came from a prompt. It was just Shakespeare. Shakespeare was the prompt. And Hermione is a character which features in one of my favourite Shakespeare plays, which is called The Winter's Tale. And it's a song from the perspective of her husband, Leontes, and it's about jealousy and tragedy. A lot of the songs that I write aren't particularly cheerful, I have to say. Little Thief was started by a prompt which was farmyard, and I didn't particularly want to write about like cows or ducks, so I did a bit of Googling on the internet and discovered that ferrets are actually quite commonly used by farmers. Because did you know that a rabbit can eat as much grass as 4 sheep? This is what I found out when I was Googling. And also that ferret comes from the Latin furritus, which literally translates as little thief. So the song was written as a love song from a farmer to his ferret. And then Queen of Cups, the prompt for that was to pick a tarot card. And I picked Queen of Cups. And the song is inspired by the definition I read online. And it's set in an imaginary upmarket restaurant with a very gossipy maitre d'. And it's a song about the givers and takers of this world. And then the final track on the EP is called Papadil, and it was inspired by a book which I found in a local secondhand shop by a wonderful poet called Les Bates. And in it he's got writings about a 10th century Christian monk called Becan MacLuach, who was Irish, who may or may not have been a hermit on rum for the last 45 years of his life. in a very remote location called Pappadill. And so Pappadill is like an imaginary song of unrequited love between a young lass on the island and this hermit that comes to live there. So they're all very varied topics.
So, are you working on any new music in the near future?
Well, we do have, like, we're supposed to come up with a song monthly with the online songwriting course, and I sometimes do that and sometimes don't. I did just record a demo of something which I'm thinking of maybe trying to record properly next year. So yeah, I'm constantly writing. In fact, not long before I sat down to do this interview, I was playing on the guitar and came up with another little melody line, so I always have my phone to hand with the voice recorder because it's a very important tool. Because if you're out walking or, can be doing the dishes and something come into my head, if you don't get it recorded immediately, it's gone. So
Gone.
yeah.
Yeah. You never think about it again.
Yes, or you just can't remember the refrain or the lyrics. Like it's incredible how quickly things go out of the head. It's like you think, oh, I remember that, and you get home and go, oh, I can't remember, can't write it down. So, yeah, I like to record things.
So, can you tell me, what's it like being an independent artist that you are in this world that we live in?
It's inspiring. It's very exciting because it's something I've always dreamed of doing, but it's also it's quite hard work being an independent artist because you're doing everything yourself. And it's not the only thing I'm doing. I have a day job as well. So yeah, you've got to write the songs, you've got to organize and produce, getting it all into the studio, fund it all, do all of the social media. For me, I mean, I know some of my friends have used like promotion companies to do the distribution and to send it to radio stations, but I chose to do that all myself as well. So yeah, it's quite a lot of work, but it's enjoyable, and I'm constantly learning new skills and how to market myself and how to take selfie videos. It's the day and age where you're just expected to have like social media content all of the time, and yeah.
So, can you tell me more about the Celtic Connections?
Celtic Connections is it's a festival, 2.5 weeks long, which takes place in Glasgow in January, late January, early February every year. And yeah, it's got a plethora of events and programs. There's connections with Canada. They have people coming in from all around the world. A lot of Scottish, a lot of traditional music. Late night sessions running. There's just so much to choose from in the program. It's well worth looking up. And
So, have you got any up and coming gigs coming up?
I have got a number of applications in. I've got an application in to play at the Under Canvas Festival, which is run by Eden Court, a venue based in Inverness, which is just up the road from me. I have emailed a festival which runs in the summer called Belladrum, which is just on the other side of Inverness. A group of musician friends and I have just actually had a meeting today. We're going to hire a local venue and put on a night in May next year of our own songs, and also, collaborating a bit and playing with each other. And I've got an application in for something else, but I can't remember. Oh yes, for Celtic Connections, I've put an application in for the Danny Kyle stage at Celtic Connections. So if I get a slot, then it will be sometime in late January, early February.
So, finally, can someone us where can I find you on your social media?
I have a website which is www.shirleybarmusic.com. If you Google Shirley Barr Music, it takes you to the website. I've also got a link tree, which if you just Google Shirley Barr link tree will come up. I'm on Instagram as Shirley Sings Songs, Facebook as Shirley Sings, but all these things are, if you go to the website, which is www.shirleybarmusic.com, it's all there on the homepage.
Thank you for chatting to you today.
Thank you so much for inviting me to have a chat, Ruben. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate you support the support that you're offering independent artists. It's great.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Goodbye.
Okay. Goodbye.
Bye.